All right, then, Econ friends, welcome back. So we've been covering the short run up to now with Perfect Competition. We have understood short run profit maximization. And then in our last video, we had a little quick hit on the short run supply curve. In this video, we're going to be taking a look at what we call the short run to long run adjustment. Okay, so we're going to be looking at the short run to the long run adjustment. And this is a really important idea. It's grounded in that assumption that we had of easy entry into and exit out of the industry. Okay, you'll recall in an earlier video that we had laid out the characteristics of perfect competition, and one of them was there are low barriers to entry, which means it's easy for new firms to come in and for existing firms to exit. And in an earlier video, we discussed the exit rule. So now we're going to put it all together. So what does it imply if you have this easy entry in and exit out? What does this mean for the industry? Well, it's going to have a couple of really important takeaways regarding long run profitability and then later long run efficiency. Okay, so let's jump in. And let's first start off with a really simple statement. Given its characteristics, in the long run, a perfectly competitive industry is going to be highly sensitive to profits and losses. Okay, now let's go back to a little brief definition from way back. We had dissected and torn apart the idea of long run and short run. And you'll recall that the long run was a planning period where all resources were variable. The short run was characterized by a fixed resource. The long run, everything was variable, which means that when you look at the long run as a planning window, firms can make lots of decisions. They can decide to stay in business at the same size. They can stay in business and expand their plant and expand their size. They can stay in business and contract their plant and reduce their size. They can exit. Outside firms can enter. So the long run reflects a period, reflects a planning window in which the dynamics of the industry can change and the size of the industry can change. And again, that size of the industry will change. The industry's supply will change because, again, outside firms can enter, existing firms can exit, existing firms can stay put at the same size, existing firms can stay in but expand their output by building a bigger factory. Existing firms can stay in but reduce their output by going to a smaller factory. All these things are options, okay? The key to understanding these options is to remember that firms, both actual ones that are in and potential ones that might enter, are highly sensitive, highly incentivized by profits and losses. So let's take it down to the basic relationship. In the long run, existing firms in the industry will have the opportunity to expand or to contract the size of their existing plants, and firms will also be able to enter into and exit out of the industry. Okay, what's going to drive that decision? Well, it's all about the incentives. If there is economic profit present, so if there is economic profit, if firms are making money, existing firms will say, this is good, let's expand. And outside entrepreneurs will enter to get a piece of those profits. So again, think about the incentives if there's profits. If economic profit is present, existing firms will expand their operations. And at the same time, new firms will enter the industry. They want to get a piece of those profits. These decisions collectively, expanded output by existing firms and the entry of new firms, this will serve to increase the supply in the industry. In turn, as you know from your supply and demand knowledge, the increase in supply, right? When supply goes up, we know that price goes down. The increase in supply will put downward pressure on prices, which will ultimately reduce and eliminate profits. Okay, this is the key. Remember, my friends, profit was equal to Q times P minus ATC. This implies that this relationship is critical. When prices were above ATC, there's profit. But notice the chain of events, okay? Prices are above ATC, there's profit. Existing firms open their supply and they expand more. New firms come in. As a result, the supply goes up and the price falls. And that gap between price and ATC disappears. And ultimately, prices fall and profits are eliminated. In a weird way, the mechanics of the PC, the perfect competition industry, they imply that the presence of profits will lead to a situation that gets rid of the profits. Amazing. Okay, we see that right here. Let's take a quick look and map it out. We see that panel B was the actual market, and panel A was the firm. Okay, you recall that the supply and the demand at the industry level, right, at the market level, gave us the price, $12. And that became the price that the firm accepted. And in this case, we see that the price is $12. The ATC is only 8. The firm has a nice profit, which you can see in that profit box, which we've already dissected. And we're good. Profits. But guess what happens? Let's go to a different color here. The profits lead existing firms to supply more and new firms to enter, and therefore the supply increases to S2. And this gives us a new equilibrium point that corresponds with the price of 7. And this is the price that the firm has to take. And when the price is 7 and ATC is 7, they're equal and profit is 0. So you can see here that the presence of profits will generate a chain event that will get rid of the profits. Okay? It goes the other way as well. Let's suppose that firms in the industry were suffering economic losses. We know that economic losses imply that P is less than ATC, right? ATC is up here, price is below it, and that gap is the loss. If the firms in the industry are suffering losses and they do not anticipate a change in conditions, you know that they will leave, AKA exit the market. And when they exit the market, this will, as you can guess, decrease supply. So exit leads to supply going down, but as you know, when supply goes down, prices will rise. Supply goes down, prices rise, and ultimately and eventually this will occur until the market has eliminated the losses. Think back again, right here. We know that P minus ATC was the loss. So there's a gap between the total cost, the ATC, and the price. That's the loss gap. Well, the losses lead to exit, which reduces supply, which increases price, and now prices go up, up, up until they equal ATC, and the losses, the gap, are eliminated. So we see here that the presence of losses starts a chain reaction of events that eventually get rid of the losses. We can see that right here as well. Same thing. Let's start off with panel B, which was the market, panel A, which was the loss. We see that originally at S1 and D, we have this equilibrium price here of, let's say, $5. That's the market. The market supply and demand, $5 price. The individual firm here in panel A, price taker. So they have to take that price of $5. But you can see here at a price of $5, price is 5, ATC is 7. We have a loss. But then look what happens. Let's change our color here. That loss causes some firms, the less efficient ones, to have to exit the industry. And that exit leads to a leftward shift, a decrease in supply, which, as you know, leads to a new equilibrium, and therefore a new and higher equilibrium price. And this price just happens to correspond to the point where P equals ATC. So here again, we see that you have losses, which is a gap between ATC up here and P down here. The losses lead to exit. The exit reduces supply. The loss of supply raises prices until that gap, those losses, disappear. Amazing. This process of entry and exit will continue on and on and on and on until the industry finally has what we know to be normal profit, AKA zero economic profit, AKA a situation where price equals ATC and the gap between them is gone. Because once we have P equal to ATC, once we have normal profit, once we have zero economic profit, critically, there is no more incentive for entry or exit. And the market achieves a form of stability. We call this situation, we call this stability long-run competitive equilibrium. And again, it occurs when the firms in a competitive industry have zero economic profit because the market price, which you know is P, exactly equals the firm's average total costs. In other words, P equals ATC at the profit maximizing level of output, and that's that. We see that right here in this graph. Let's take a quick look at it. Actually, we'll stay with pen. You see that you have at a price of $7, you have this is our P, our D, and our MR. We see the Nike swoosh MC curve. Step 1, MR equals MC right here. We take it down, we get a quantity of 4. At that point, step 2, we go up to the demand curve and go left to get price equals 7. Step 3, we go to the ATC curve, which also crosses right here. So we see there that ATC equals price equals 7. Profits are 0. Normal profit, no profits, no losses, no incentive for entry, no incentive for exit, market stability at long run competitive equilibrium. That's how we go from the short run to the long run. Thanks, my friends, and I'll see you next time.